Happy Election Day 2024, everybody. Well, thought I'd chime in with a few choice words of my own. Anyone else feel like we're in court trying to get a restraining order against our abuser? And just hoping our lawyer is better than theirs and the judge isn't corrupt? I mean, for real, I feel that way. And let me explain why I use this analogy. Those of you who've been in any abusive relationship in your life will probably relate. Those of you who haven't, just try to play along and hear me out. Characteristics of abusers. These are pretty common across the board. They gaslight. They try to make you feel like you're crazy, that the reality you perceive is not the real reality, and they will just lie to your face about what is self-evident. They're the people who tell you the sun rises in the west with a look of absolute conviction on their face. And obviously I'm exaggerating, but you get my drift. That didn't happen. It's not what it looked like. It's not what you think. It is what you think, but you deserve it. That's another one. There's blame shifting is the next one. So we go from gaslighting to blame shifting. Blame shifting is once you catch on or you make it impossible for them to lie effectively. Here are the receipts. Look, here it is. Well, of course, you made me. You made me do that. So we go instantly from denying it to admitting it, but blaming the person who called them out. You made me do it. I had no choice. What else could I do? It's your fault. You drove me to it. It's because of your bad behavior, etc. And then, after we have the blame shifting, we have the ever popular double standards. Abusers love double standards. What are double standards? Well, it's a rhetorical question. You know what they are. That's when your abuser gets to behave in ways that you wouldn't dare behave. I mean, you just wouldn't, because you would be held accountable by them and possibly even by the flying monkeys with which they surround themselves. Their fans, their family, their supporters, etc. So let's look at an example, shall we? It's COVID, everybody's locked down, you can't go to work, you can't go to church, you can't go to school, you can't step outside your house, but, yeah, I mean, you can't even protest a lockdown. But if you want to go rioting, burning down a city, vandalizing property, tearing down statues, shoplifting, want to leave your house for that kind of activity, that's okay, because you're doing the bidding of the abuser. So if somebody is doing the bidding of the abuser, or if you're the abuser doing what you want to do, that's okay. You had your reasons, remember? You have your reasons. They deserve it. They drove you to it. They deserve worse. Sound familiar? This is the least that you deserve because of your bad behavior. Yeah, but what about all the good things? No. That doesn't count next to all the bad things that you've allegedly done. By the way, no evidence for the bad things you've done. And here's the next one. Almost forgot this one. Projection. So we have the double standards, but in order to make the double standards and the blame shifting work really well, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the gaslighting, we project. So everything the abuser says you are doing, that's what they're doing. So their accusations become confessions. It doesn't matter what it is. You're lying, you're, making things up, you're spreading misinformation, that's a hoax, you name it. When they turn around and say things that have been debunked for years, not just days, weeks, months, but years. Blatant falsehoods. So we're not, the gaslighting is, no, you didn't see that. It wasn't what it looked like, blah, blah. But this is just straight up lies. That you're doing something you're not doing. Like at all. In fact, it's their way of telling you they're doing something. Because then what happens is when they're caught dead to rights, like I said, when you bring the receipts, then it's like, well, what did you think? Of course. Like I said, you deserved it. That thing I said I wasn't doing that you were doing. It's totally different than what I said you were doing, even though it's exactly the same thing. All of this is crazy making. All of this makes you feel somewhere between rage and despair. And you may alternate, by the hour, by the minute, by the day. It depends. You might get physically ill. You might start eating your feelings. You might start, abusing substances, not sleeping, who knows what. Sound familiar? Because it doesn't have to be an individual in your life doing this. It could be the people in power over your life. And it is abusive. It's an abusive relationship that we are in with our government. And no incident more perfectly captured that than the raid that resulted in the death of Peanut, the squirrel, and Fred the raccoon. Let's not forget Fred. He wasn't an internet sensation, so we don't remember him, but he was murdered as well. And it, as tragic as that was, it was what it represented. It was the idea that the government can oppress us absolutely legally, like totally legally, and get away with it. It's like totally fine because it's within the law. There's laws. I get to come into your house because reasons. I have a warrant. I can come in. I can trash your house because I have a warrant. I can kill your pets because I have a warrant. I can turn off my cameras because reasons. Whatever. And it's all legal. They didn't overreach their authority. They used their authority. And what is so egregious, I think aside from that they have the legal authority to terrorize and tyrannize us, is the double standard that we who push back and fight back are a threat. We're a threat to liberty for pushing back against this. And that's what abusers do. When all else fails, they cry. When all else fails, they whine. You're hurting me. I've done so much for you, and this is a lack of gratitude that you show to me, and I can't believe that you would stoop this low, and what did I do to deserve this? When all else fails, we cry. They're injured. They're the victim. I'm under threat. Oh my God. Turn it all on you. You're the horrible, evil, crazy, psycho, oppressor, whatever. That's abuse. Straight up abuse. I know that there are people out there who've been in abusive relationships who are having deja vu like every day, watching what goes on, in our government. They're just sitting there going, how did I end up in a world where I can't escape? And there's no shelter to go to. There's no place where everybody, says you're safe here, because you're not. So if you did escape for an individual abuser ever in your life, you're feeling like surrounded, like this is just your life now. And you're constantly in PTSD, hypervigilance. But that's most of us who actually care about liberty and haven't been sucked into the codependent world, and we're not flying monkeys defending our abuser, because those people exist. They're called leftists. Or they're abusers themselves. One of the two. They're complicit in their own abuse, or they are abusers. And I'm saying at this point, from my observation, it's about 50-50. Okay. They enjoy the power they get from being part of this whole thing. So that's why the Peanut thing is so emblematic. It's like, oh my God, there it is. And it's also especially offensive coming from the same people, like I said, who accuse us of being a threat to democracy. A threat to mob rule. Yeah, we're a threat to mob rule. We want individual sovereignty. We want individual rights. So, and these people who so freely oppress us using the law are the ones who call everything that isn't oppressive. Just like an abuser would. Your expectations of me are oppressive. The left does that too. The government, the left, that's kind of inseparable at this point. They're just control freaks of all varieties. They will tell you whiteness is oppressive. Heteronormativity is oppressive. The written word and our reliance on it is oppressive. Grades are oppressive. Discipline is oppressive. Abusive even to discipline a child. Never mind in school. Expectations are oppressive. The sex binary is oppressive. marriage as an institution is oppressive, parenting is oppressive, pregnancy is oppressive, puberty is practically a disease. I'm waiting for them to declare that menopause is disease too, and recommend something like MAID as a treatment. I mean, it's coming. All of these things are oppressive. Supposedly, property rights of other people. That's oppressive to those who want to, steal things. How dare you want to maintain your own property rights? How dare you expect the law to protect you? I should be able to steal with impunity. I should be able to just vandalize your property with impunity because I have feels. I have needs. That becomes your imperative to supply what I need. That's abuse. That is oppression. It's stealing, and it's enslaving somebody against their will to your needs. And that's what abusers do. My needs. You're so mean. Ugh. Like I said, anybody watching this who's been in that kind of relationship is nodding along and going, sounds very familiar. And what happens in those abusive relationships if you don't get away? After they've, financially abused you and emotionally and psychologically abused you and possibly even your friends and your family, whatever. And what's left? What's left if you really try to escape and they're just not willing to release you? That's when the violence comes, like what happened to the squirrel and the raccoon. So we look at that squirrel and that raccoon and we see ourselves. I know that sounds probably crazy. You're probably thinking, I'm not a squirrel, I'm not a raccoon. I get it, yeah, but you could be. Or that could be, one of your children that they accidentally shot during a SWAT on your home because somebody called in a tip that you were some kind of threat to the powers that be, and they perfectly legally had it, Think about Breonna Taylor. They're always saying, say her name, say her name. I'm just saying. I just said her name. So interesting how the left will say that to us, but then turn around and not recognize the same thing in play when it's not somebody they like. That's another thing abusers do. They'll tune in to the idea that something is wrong when it serves a narrative. Police are bad. All cops are bastards. White people are bad. Black people are good, pure as the driven snow. These are narratives. I'm not saying black people are bad. I'm not saying white people are all good. I'm saying we shouldn't be talking about people as white people and black people. We're Americans. We're individuals, first and foremost. Whatever we look like. We have rights. And that's what abusers can't tolerate. They cannot tolerate another person, another individual, having rights. That's not allowed. You can't get away from them. You can't not do for them what you want them to do. Give them what they want you to give to them. Their need is control. That's why they abuse. If they knew how to get their needs met without abuse, if they knew how to do the whole give and take and, voluntary free exchange, if they knew how to hear the word no without falling apart, if they knew how to be persuasive rather than manipulative, they would do it. They don't know how. And part of why they don't know how is they're defective. I mean that sincerely. They're defective in their minds. Something is amiss. Now, it could be something organic in their brains. It could be upbringing, growing up with, coercive controllers or psychopaths, sociopaths, abusers in their own home. Who knows? But whatever it is, they never developed, ironically, get it, empathy. You know that word they toss around all the time? I said projection, right? They want all this empathy. They want it for themselves. There's none for you. Empathy for me, but not for thee would be their slogan. So yeah, they didn't have any of that. You're a means to an end. And by any means necessary. That means they could just chop you up and spit you out and, whatever it takes to get what they want. And remember, their wants are needs. There's no differentiation. They want something, therefore they need it. Their need is your imperative. So now that you understand the dynamic that we're in, you might understand a couple of things. One, why so many of us feel on edge today. As I said, like we're in court waiting for a verdict on whether we're going to get this restraining order or not. And it really is a restraining order. Okay, so that's the anxiety. And then that second thing is that it is just a restraining order. And as with real restraining orders in the real world, they don't always work. It's a stopgap. It's the bare minimum that you try to do to just be like, get this person away from me, please, or at least put something in place where they're on notice and everybody else is on notice that they're not allowed to continue to do this. And then if they do, now we have something on record that perhaps they could be punished, maybe. That's all we're getting out of this. I voted for Donald Trump, but I'm under no illusions that he can magically fix this and change the minds of half the country to go from being cluster-B control freak abusers of the rest of us who just want to be left alone to live our lives in peace and freely exchange with our neighbors to make a living and function in this world. He's not going to be able to do that. There's no magical law he can pass. There's no amount of undoing things in various institutions that he can do to change the culture fast enough for those people not to fight back. And so I really think that's why we all feel so anxious, is deep down we know, even if Donald Trump wins, this is a stopgap. This is a Hail Mary pass. It's a thumb in the leak of the dam. And we're just hoping that it'll buy us a little time, just like the restraining order, to find a way to get away, to find better protections, to hide, to do whatever it is we have to do to stay safe from the machinations of the now injured abuser. And that's another thing. It's the last thing I'll say. When you do take a stand against your abuser, and let's say you get a restraining order, that causes them injury. They don't like that. So as bad as you thought they were before you injured them, before you took away their toys, before you prevented them from being able to do what they wanted, deprived them of that sense of power, possibly even humiliated them in front of other people, namely a judge, a court, they don't take that lying down. They will very often snap. So I think the other reason we're all on edge is, as much as people want to send a message to the abuser, the oppressor, back off, leave me alone, we're done with this, we want something different, we know there will be repercussions for taking this stand. Now, I'm willing to deal with that. I'm willing to face whatever that is, because it's never a bad idea to do the right thing. Never is. Never the wrong thing to stand up against abuse. Too many people are moral cowards and they won't do it. And I'm hoping against hope today that enough people have decided they're going to take their chances on what comes next. Just to say, we're standing up for what's right and true. We're standing up for freedom of speech. We're standing up for individual liberty. We're standing up for, free markets to the extent that we can have them even with a Trump presidency in a mixed economy. We are saying no more to this control freakishness that has been brought down on us for, not just the last 4 years, you guys. It even happened under the Trump presidency with all the other agencies. And it certainly happened under the 8 years of Obama. And it even happened under Bush. Where do you think we got the Patriot Act and FISA warrants and the authorization for use of military force and so many other things that have allowed them to spy on us, gather intel on us, and basically grow the surveillance state, perpetuate forever wars, etc., that we're now desperately trying to fight back against? So I don't know if this resonates for any of you. Let me know in the comments, but that's how I feel today. Like somebody who is just waiting to find out if we're going to get a restraining order, and then mentally and emotionally preparing myself for how to exist if we do get it or we don't get it. because we can't just breathe a sigh of relief. There'll be other work to do. And it's a little bit exhausting to think about it. So if you're feeling weird today and this resonates, let me know. I hope everybody has as peaceful a day as you possibly can. And if you haven't voted, please go vote at least. And I will see you again next time.